Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us. I hope you all are doing well. We're back with another amazing session today during this ongoing Global Pakistan Tech Summit. I would like to give a quick introduction about myself. So, my name is Hamza Tahir. I'm the chapter director of Slack Platform Community in Stargrind, Islamabad. Before we proceed to today's session, I would like to talk about our ongoing month-long Pakistan Tech Summit, at which we're hosting 200 plus speakers from across the world, showcasing Pakistani startups and tech talent, and doing great events like this one today. At Slack Platform Community, we host monthly events on topics involving startups, technology, checking out new platform releases at Slack, talk about what we've built, learn from each other. Slack is a global tech community having a presence in 80 plus cities, and we also do our monthly events. We have chapters in Islamabad, Lahore, Karachi. Uh, so, together with the support of AWS, we're super excited to hosting this amazing session on building lean canvas, building lean businesses on Amazon Web Services with Frank Ang today. Thank you so much, Frank, for honoring us with your presence today. I would like to give the quick introduction of Frank. Frank Ang is a AWS Senior Solutions Architect based in Singapore. He's fully engaged as an advisor, educator, and guide for startups and enterprises in Asian emerging markets. Frank previously delivered hyperscale identity systems for AWS, and during his 20 years in tech, also shipped analytics, transaction processing, and security projects for TIBCO, SUSE, IBM, and Accenture. So let's proceed to today's session. Over to you, Frank.
Yes. Thanks, Hamza. And welcome, everyone. Welcome back to the sessions. And hope everyone's enjoying the weekend and spending valuable time with learning and enrichment experience with the Pakistan Tech Summit. I'd like to extend a sincere thanks to Ijad for organizing this wonderful series of events for us. So building lean businesses, that's something that's come to really start focus recently and even more than before. Businesses really needed to pivot to agile business models for especially internet native, mobile native businesses. So a quick introduction to myself. Just like Hamza had mentioned, I'm a senior solution architect with Amazon. I'm based in Singapore, and been helping Pakistan customers adopt the AWS platform, adopt cloud computing, and use best practices to ensure that their deployments are robust. So getting into the content, what's innovation generally, and how does cloud enable innovate? The pace of innovation for companies. So just taking a page out of Amazon ourselves, and specifically our shareholder letter from 1997, which has been reshared with every single annual report since then. Because one of the key remarks that Jeff Bezos made to our shareholders is this approach of being a day one company. No matter how successfully and large Amazon gets, we still behave at its core like a number of startups. It's always day one for us, and just like for the internet, we feel that to be obsessed with customers, it really means not taking anything for granted. To be able to economize based on the opportunities that cloud computing and the opportunities for agile and a more rapid pace of innovation that it provides to us. It's really the essence of behaving like a startup, and to take that day one approach that everything's new. Don't overanalyze a situation. Just 70% of information is probably enough to make a decision and to go with it and basically run like a startup. So we ourselves behave like a startup from Amazon.com and AWS, which is the division I work for. And that's something that we've taken through much of our heritage of helping startups utilize the platform and to listen to our customers, primarily startups, as they as they went through this journey with us. Since then, the business has gone into enterprises, large organizational, even public sector and education institutions, but many of them still see this aspiration of behaving like a startup. Okay, so just a very simple life cycle. Let's go through a journey of getting a startup off the ground and turning into a successful, profitable concern. It starts with the idea, growing that idea into a minimum viable product, scaling that idea, and continuing to iterate it towards profitability. Now, this sequence may seem logical and is misleadingly simple. The reason why it's misleading is because it's not a straight line. There are multiple iterations that need to take place and more considerations than meets the eye. For example, time to market. We need to be able to deliver an idea faster so that we can iterate on the idea and to validate the market readiness for the idea. So gone are the days of long development cycles and high costs. So have the ability to experiment and test your hypothesis quickly. And once you've hit upon a successful idea, to scale that to address potentially a global, essentially to go global overnight. And also as part of the economics, to be able to adjust your workloads to scale based on user patterns. Okay, it could be weekday patterns. Your users might be more weekend-based patterns, but you need to have a platform that scales dynamically, both up and down. And also the profitability. To have the economics in place to shift from a CapEx model, a capital expenditure model, to an operational expenditure model is something that many startups have found very appealing with cloud computing. So this helps them to get out of the to de-risk, essentially, to get out of the messy business of forecasting infrastructure to support their business, because now they can essentially consume computation workload as easily, well, almost as easily, I should say, as turning on the light switch. So just to highlight the point again, consider it. I mean, many of us here are running some form of business or supporting a business, and to think like a leader of your business, consider the product or the service that you're delivering to your customers. Who are they? Internal customers, external customers. How do you ship features faster, better, and cheaper? The perennial, and I should say universal priorities every business has. Market. Consider how you wish to market the product. Okay, how do people consume the product? Is it based on a SaaS model or delivering software? Is it a mobile application? Is it a database business delivering data analytics? How do you scale? How do you deal with spiky workload patterns? And how do you go and deliver your service across multiple countries potentially? And how do you monetize? How do you define a profitable what's the break-even point? How do you stay profitable? How do you avoid having to worry about technical infrastructure and just focus on the business idea? So it's a very complex, the number of complexities that startups need to handle with is immense. And to compound that, many startups know what the problem is, but not the solution exactly. Right, so they need to iterate upon different candidates of solution before hitting on the best idea. And even where some startups have this concept, but is a more fuzzily defined problem space. So lean startups, what's the essence of it? Is to have a learning organization that can adapt quickly with a very low burn rate, such that they're very economical in the experiments that they run as they try to find that right product fit. Okay, so some principles. Focus on the simple implementation of your idea. Right? Start with a small, minimal set of core features, the so-called minimum viable product. Release fast. And listen to your users to gain feedback, which is an approach that AWS has, as well as we release fast so that we can listen to our user feedback and continually to iterate and improve features, functions, and even new services, which is an approach that's taken literally from the startup world. That's the notion of the minimum viable product, the MVP. the smallest thing, the smallest consistent thing that can be brought to market to test the readiness of the idea to the market. It doesn't really need a huge infrastructure. Like a prototype doesn't require large data center investments to bring it to reality. So many startups take a very scrappy approach. Let's consider the very first, what does this look like? This contraption, this collection of haphazardly assembled wires and wheels. This is the world's first mouse. Okay, it was delivered in 1964. This is the world's first prototype of a mouse. It was a computer mouse. It was it's functional. It actually works. There's a left mouse. At the time, they didn't distinguish left mouse or right mouse button. There was a button, and it handled the X and Y movements quite well. And this is low cost, it's cheap, and it validates ideas. And now, since some people have gone on to trackpads, but we can see how essential the mouse has been to the history of computing. So AWS, taking that analogy, when it comes to compute resources, the value proposition of Amazon Web Services, for those of you who are new to the platform, many of you are already using the platform, the mix of audience here, is it enables you to fail forward, fail faster, and fail cheaper. Amazon, we consider ourselves to be the world's undisputed leader at failure. We fail better than everyone. The reason is because we can fail faster. That means that statistically, based on the number of experiments that we run, there are highly published failures, for example, the Fire phone. But we take the data from that learning and that experience and use it to improve the user experience and to gather more data about the product so we can arrive at better products such as the Alexa device, the Echo device. So that's the idea of startups really need to focus upon not on success, but focus on just as importantly, failure is a very important part of that journey towards a successful business. Let's take the idealized view of a product development cycle. So over time, we scale up our features, we build a minimum viable product, and we continue to scale in a linear line. So that's misleading. The reality is that the feature build goes in a very jagged approach. And in fact, there's backwards movements as we go back to the drawing board, and startups scale up the features, figure out, okay, maybe we need to fine tune again and go back to drawing board. But because it's so economical to spin up resources on the cloud, and because of agile application development techniques, going back to the drawing board isn't that big of a tax, and there's a lot of reuse that's possible as well. Let's take this company, Bourbon. Okay, at least that was the name of the company when they started. This location-based mobile app, their big idea was to have a photo sharing application. It's just one of the main features. Okay, so they have rewritten after multiple failures. They have hit upon the right formula, and they have now sold themselves to Facebook for $1 billion. So this is Instagram, the company. They started out on AWS. They have since, more recently after acquisition by Facebook, moved some of the infrastructure to the Facebook infrastructure, but a very successful alumni of AWS. Let's take this other company. Guess who this is? Odeo. That was their original name, Odeo. This is a site that their idea was to share podcasts by calling up a telephone. Basically, that was in the early days before recording. So they would basically on the phone line record your podcasts, and they will post it into MP3 on the internet. It's a massive failure. But one of their lead developers decided to acquire the company and take it to a different direction altogether, which is to use the SMS feature to create a microblogging site. And that site now became Twitter. So they have millions of daily active users, a huge market cap, and they're very essential, in the social landscape. And yet another example I'd like to just cite. this company. This is based in Europe. They're based in Europe. They develop the games developed. They love developing games. It's 51 games. None of them were very successful. But then they kept on experimenting, and game number 52 was Angry Birds. So they are now, they went IPO, the massive success with that hit. So yeah, I mean, they're a very happy user of Amazon Web Services. So the platform that really helps to lower the cost of innovation and helps your team start small with initial idea, with perhaps an unclear customer problem and solution, and really to experiment quickly, okay, with a low budget. And we'll look at some of the mechanisms to ensure that you're economizing such that you can increase the rate that you are innovating and increase the rate of experimentation. Going into scaling fast, and many elements of this. Think big, but you start small, and you can scale fast. And the platform of the cloud computing platform helps you to get there faster. And from a team perspective, how do you structure a startup? So we've taken within Amazon and Amazon Web Services, we've taken the analogy of a two-piece team, or rather the principle of the two-piece team, that basically the team size for delivering a service should optimally be no larger than what can be fed with two pizzas, okay, or the equivalent in a casino. So that really is the optimal size for ownership, so that it'll be a small autonomous teams with features that will be driven by customer feedback, and they are full owners of the service. So the size of the startup or that service has full ownership from inception, business development, to product development, bug fixes, to operations. So that self-contained unit, that cross-functional team, avoids this messy handover between development team to operational team. So unifies the dev and ops and even security together, and even finance as well, to financial operations. And it helps with trust. And essentially that two-piece team requires tools. So tools for builders, essentially builders of businesses and builders of services. And from AWS, we felt that most of our customers are builders themselves, and we are the platform that provides the tools for those builders based on what kind of tooling they're comfortable with. And one of those tools in the old world of technology has been servers, individual servers. Those of us from the old school who still remember those days of servers were individual, and they're highly bespoke. In the on-premises world, manually administration, a lot of care and feeding were required to maintain server farms and server infrastructure. They were very bespoke. For example, manual runbooks to configure servers, which introduces errors, which introduces a lot of work. So this very one-of-a-kind infrastructure, very laborious. Consequently, servers became very valuable, and some sysadmins taken to even giving servers individual names. So that is, that server is Priscilla 1, that's Veronica 2 or something. So taking the pet and the uniqueness mindset of IT. Whereas with a more standardized approach like cloud computing brings, it really helps to commoditize technology. Taking compute resources and storage resources as cattle, essentially, something that's swappable, standardized, automated. It reduces the potential for error because of that automation, and it helps to increase the efficiency and correspondingly lower the cost of managing technology. Using standardized API to consume standardizes, databases as a service, to operating system as a service, up to even functions as a service if required. And going from commoditized servers to even this idea of serverless. Do we even need servers in the API-driven world to have functions as a service? Artificial intelligence, AI, and machine learning as a service helps us to avoid managing and provisioning servers at all, and helps us to not have to worry too much about scaling or paying for idle resources, to entrust the platform like Amazon Web Services to build in availability and fault tolerance into the serverless model. One of those, just a plug, Amplify is one of the mobile application development frameworks. It's like a meta framework for application developers who are mobile first, or are very familiar with Android, iOS development, or using a JavaScript frameworks like Angular, Vue, or React, that require a way to provision the backend resources to become full stack application developers. So this framework, do check it out, and also do join me in next week's webinar where I'll be joining with the Pakistan Amazon Web Services user group. Do check them out on Facebook. I'll give you the URL later. I'll take us through a demonstration of Amplify. But on this topic of innovation, innovation goes hand in hand with economics, okay? Because innovation comes with a cost, right? And if we can reduce that cost, we can help to increase the rate of experimentation. And innovation is really 99, like Einstein once said, is something about to the effect of 99% perspiration and 1% inspiration. So that perspiration is really the experimentation phase. Okay, and every business really requires three focal areas. They need to grow new revenue streams. They need to improve operational and financial efficiency, and businesses need to lower risk. And all of these considerations, these goals, can be met with cloud computing technology. Consider growing revenue streams with better experimentation rate. If your rate of delivering new experiments to customers and collecting data improves, we can statistically grow new revenue streams in a more efficient way. From operational expense, if we move to operational expense from capex, from capex to opex, essentially, we can improve our financial efficiency, and as a consequence, also lower business risk. When we go into an OpEx-based cloud model that can elastically scale up and down, we can lower the business risk when, for example, unforeseen circumstances, when, for example, pandemics occur. We can dial down our compute resources to match consumer demand. We can have a lower burn rate and resume and scale up once business demand increases. And also to take the analogy of cloud computing being almost like a sea change between the first industrial revolution to the second, which is going from steam powered industry to more of on-demand electricity requiring large power plants, where you can essentially turn on the lights, turn off the lights at the flick of a switch. Likewise, cloud computing is a similar shift to a really truly on-demand computing, like a utility, going from a world of the third industrial revolution, which is tremendously beneficial to humanity because of its use of information tech. But we're taking that even further, going into what the IMF called the Industry 4.0, right? And the fourth industrial revolution, calling it Industry 4.0. Cloud computing helps us to consume computing resources just as easily as it did with on-demand electricity. On-demand computing can be consumed with a few mouse clicks instead of a light switch. And that, because it's so easy to spin up and spin down compute resources, you can reduce waste by really fitting your cost structure and resource structure to meet demand. Okay, so you can elastically scale up and down. Whereas to contrast that to traditional on-premises, traditional IT capacity is consumed on a more static basis. There's a one-time CapEx model to procure, to ship in, to rack mount, and to plug in traditional IT hardware that needs to be forecasted based on 5 years, more realistic nowadays, a 7-year lifespan. Whereas in this day and age, it's sometimes difficult to forecast over the next 2 weeks. So that's really the benefit of consuming compute on demand. And compute, I mean generally. It includes database on demand, serverless features on demand, and helps you to hug your workloads and not your servers. To take an illustration, Take a business that has its customers using its service on weekdays, Monday to Friday. On the y-axis, we see the total, what's known as EC2. This is Elastic Compute Cloud, basically Linux and Windows service on demand on AWS. The number of hours would adjust based on whether it's a weekend or a weekday. On weekends, it would dial down the resources that's required to serve a lower volume of users, and it will dial up to meet the user demands on weekdays. So that's a feature that's enabled using autoscaling. I realize this is a mixed, potentially a mixed audience, so this is the most technical chart that I'll be presenting. And this, if you'd like a deeper dive, I'm happy to have a discussion with you on next Saturday's Pakistan user group, AWS user group discussion. But autoscaling has been, and load balancing particularly, has been with us for many, many years, even on-premises world. The innovation that cloud computing provides is it allows you to auto-scale the backend resources that the load balancer distributes using a capacity that matches demand. Okay. So if you have your weekday high volume of users, we would scale out the auto-scaling groups across multiple copies of multiple images that host your workload. So recall the idea of automation and servers as cattle, IT infrastructure as cattle, and this commoditized view of scaling out commodity servers and scaling in when unneeded is really the essence of elasticity. And you can also economize by using Instance Scheduler. This is a solution that you can download. The link is below. So this is a solution that helps you to automatically, on a scheduled basis, schedule starting and stopping instances when unused. So one of the mistakes many startups make is because it's so easy to spin up resources, they oftentimes forget to terminate resources when they're not required. So the Instance Scheduler, do check it out if you're an AWS user. It will help you to schedule when are the servers actually required. For example, if considered development and test workloads, do those need to be running outside of office hours, really? And also, try to automate non-differentiated heavy lifting work. So these are, for example, work that, for example, installation of media, installation of standard images and software onto servers, and go to a more of a DevOps model where you continually pushing code. It'll run tests automatically. It'll push out to multiple stages and push out to environments, and what's known as a blue-green deployment to minimize impact to users. Many of these needs of a typical startup are available from AWS and from third-party ecosystem services within the AWS orbit, I should say. For example, manual testing, rebuild of servers, installation, backup, restore. Many of these non-differentiated works doesn't really add that. It's essential, obviously, for any business and especially for startups, but it doesn't really differentiate you as a startup. Focus on your business and let the automation handle much of the undifferentiated heavy lifting. Also, visibility. Try to set up your AWS budget so that you have visibility into your spend, the visibility into how your compute resources are being utilized over time. So this is a feature. Just have a look at your AWS budgets console. Create a budget, and even you can set alarms based on thresholds, based on when you exceed certain thresholds, whether even on a predicted model based on straight line extrapolation, when would the budget be forecasted to be exceeded, and subscribe to those alerts, okay, via email. It'll help us to gain better visibility into our costs and to economize accordingly before to have a more tighter alignment between finance and accounting. So that's another dimension of the cross-functional team where financial operations is really aligned into dev and ops, as well as security and DevOps, DevSecOps. I'd also like to highlight the free tier. So you can get started. Startups can get started with a free tier, which is gets you started to learn about the AWS platform. And there's also on a more ongoing basis, there's, depending on the type of technology you're using, serverless infrastructure, database as a service, serverless databases even that you could utilize. Like I mentioned, AWS Amplify. You can run websites in dynamic single-page applications using that framework. And even if your needs are as simple as a Linux and Unix environment, a Linux or Unix server or Windows server, the Linux variant, there's a service known as Lightsail. So Lightsail virtual servers can be consumed for as little as $3.50 USD per month, which is quite sufficient to run a small experiment and be a deployment target for code. Okay, and I'd also like to highlight that to take your startup or your organization to the realm of cloud computing really requires you to consider the skills gap. This is a reality that many tech professionals, that are trained in cloud computing, aren't that easy to come by. That's something that we recognize, and that's the feedback that we're hearing from our customers in the field. But from an individual career perspective, if you're a tech professional, do acknowledge that this is something that would be a good idea to gain your certifications, go through the many free as well as online training on cloud computing, so that you can bridge that gap and help to realize the promise of being an agile, lean business. And to help to bridge that gap of skills, you can get started on AWS Training. This provides you on-demand courses for a team to learn about AWS services. There's also a Getting Started page. I highly recommend you if you're new to the platform to have. And you can also go to, again, AWS Training provides a number of virtual training options. Many of them are free for your team to learn. There are also third-party websites that are available. And it will help you on the journey towards acquiring certifications, acquiring the skills necessary to pass those certifications, acquire them so that you can go on your journey as a cloud professional. Contribute to your startup, start up a company on your own if required, because the reality of cloud is that it's directly correlated with the uptick, the hockey stick of startups getting off the ground. It kind of coincided with the start of AWS in 2006. That was one of the findings from Harvard Business Review. So yeah, that's a few of the insights that I'd like to share. I'd also like to just very quickly, since we have some more time, to cover a few of the principles of cost economics on AWS, just taking us further beyond the training and certification. So just want to cherry pick a few of the cost saving techniques that you could utilize on AWS. I'll just go through maybe just the top 10. So 10 ways that, to me, the 10 most applicable and the lowest, the easiest things that you could do to economize on AWS for those who are already on AWS, or if you're considering utilizing cloud technology, just park these concepts on the back of your mind once you start utilizing the platform, just to understand that there are these levers that are available for you to utilize. So firstly, clean up the underutilized resources. Okay. Look at just do a sweep of your resources. There are measurement technologies that are available. For example, CloudWatch is a way to monitor the utilization of your resources. Find those. There's also a feature called the Trusted Advisor, which will provide recommendations on identifying the underutilized resources that could determine whether or not they can be down, their sizing could be reduced, or right-sized, like we say, or even stopped or terminated. For those of you who are using storage, S3 is a simple storage service from AWS. It helps you to provide a highly durable, highly secure, and low-cost, highly available service for storing objects of up to 5 petabyte per object size. 5 terabyte per object size, and virtually unlimited storage. So you can enable S3 intelligent tiering, which can help you to transition from higher cost storage to lower cost storage. Third, optimize EBS storage. EBS is elastic block storage. Think of it as disk storage or locally directly attached storage devices to your EC2 or compute instances. And you can optimize storage by moving from solid state type storage to magnetic media storage, which can provide in the order of about half of the savings, half of the cost of solid state disks. Fourthly, stop paying for underutilized instances. This is related to underutilized resources like load balancers, such as CloudWatch logs, log groups. Stop paying for underutilized EC2 instances. Trusted Advisor can help you get started to find out your Linux and Windows virtual machines that are underutilized. And stop paying for idle RDS instances also. So use the Compute Optimizer to identify the appropriate sizing for EC2 instances, and even to terminate those that are underutilized. Also look at spot instances. Spot instances is a way to consume EC2 using open market pricing. So this can really help you economize, and particularly for auto-scaling instances or batch-based workloads or terminatable workloads, you can consume this at extreme, actually, appealing discount levels. Use EC2 autoscaling. This can be combined with spot instances also. You can consume so-called on-demand EC2 together with spot instances together in the same autoscaling group. Utilize serverless databases. Aurora RDS, Amazon RDS Aurora are MySQL and Postgres compatible databases, and both now come in serverless variants, where essentially is pay as you go, essentially. So for intermittent workloads or workloads need to scale up and down, and it can potentially go down to zero volume of hours. This is a good way to automate the consumption of smaller databases that can scale. From a discounting mechanisms, there's a compute savings plan where you could utilize this plan, which is basically a spend commitment in exchange for a discount in short. So it's a discounting mechanism similar to reserve instances, which can be applicable to RDS managed databases, to Elasticache instances where you could apply these reservations, or even Redshift for managed data warehouses. You can reserve these instances on a 1-year and 3-year terms for discounts. So these are a few of the ways that I would recommend you consider as you adopt AWS for running your business. And with that, I'd like to recommend please consider joining. Have a look at the AWS user group, Pakistan. They're very responsive. It's an increasingly vibrant community. We'll be running our third user group meetup. That'll be online on Saturday the 27th. So do check us out. Okay, so I'll be taking us through a demonstration of AI-based mobile application with React.js next week. Okay, with that, I'd like to make you open up for questions and have a look. I have some questions in the comments here. So, is there any training program for serverless? We're working on the serverless for your product. Thank you for that question, Sonia. Yes, there are training programs for serverless. There's too many to mention. I'm just going to go to AWS.training. There's a number of courses there. There are third-party resources. In fact, inside the documentation itself for the service that you're looking for, there are guidance on starting up with serverless, depending on what you're looking at. Serverless databases, serverless functions, serverless websites. In a way, serverless storage like S3, that's a form of serverless technology. Anything that doesn't really require operating Linux or Windows environments and is on a pay-as-you-go model, can be considered as serverless. A serverless API gateway, for example. Many of those serverless technologies are orchestrated in terms of provisioning using tools like the CDK, the cloud development kit, or using front-end toolkits like AWS Amplify. So that's an indirect way. Yes, short answer, yes, there are training programs for serverless, but then again, what do we mean by serverless? Which specific service are you looking at? Serverless container runtime, like on Fargate. That's another possibility. So it's a more nuanced question there once we get into the details of what you mean by serverless. But thank you, Sonia. A question from Sana. Yes. Yes, they have multiple. Thank you for that response, Sana. Danielle, thanks for that question. I'd like to ask about the diversity and the founding team of a startup. Okay. Okay, there are a bunch of techies doing everything yourselves, working on a DL project. Data Lake, I would suppose, is what DL is. And I will shift to AWS. My question is, which AWS service are important to run deep learning or data lake? Well, they're kind of related because you will need the data repository, because deep learning and machine learning models does require access to a large set of data. So a data lake might be on the cards for you as well. And which server architecture should you use to scale your application? Well, it really depends on what is the deep learning model that you're using. And also, what is the use case? Some models you could build on your own. Others you could actually consume without training your own model, or have a service that you could train. For example, from SageMaker is one of the AI-based services that we provide. But this does require you to have data scientists on the team who can develop models using your AI deep learning framework, PyTorch, MXNet, or you could potentially consider using one of the API-based AI services. For example, using recognition for machine vision. You could use for facial recognition. I hope we're running through, like, for example, a facial recognition and a form recognition demo using Amplify on the 27th with the Pakistan user group. So do check this out. There's also services such as Personalize, if you're in the business of providing personalized recommendations for retail shops. So this provides personalized models based on training and retail data, or it can be also used for media recommendations also. So forecast is another, if you're looking at demand forecasting or supply side forecasting. These are AI-based services that can be consumed. And of course, there are other deep learning models, from machine vision to text-to-speech, voice text. Okay, so yeah, thanks. You clarified that you're actually working on stock market forecasting. That is interesting, and that does require. Yeah, so if you're looking at, I'm not sure, do you refer to algo trading, or are you looking at more at the analytics side of forecasting? So I'm not a technical analyst when it comes to market data, so I couldn't really comment too much there. But yes, there are scope, because ultimately it's still data underneath. But it does require some access to large sets of stock market data for forecasting. And that's where the data lake, the other potential of DL for deep learning and DL for data lake. And so use the data lake to ingest the data such that you have a way to bubble up and to publish that data for your deep learning training. And one of the essences of the data lake is really S3, a simple storage service for low-cost, highly durable access to data. Okay. So, are there any other questions?
So actually, because this live stream was happening at many other pages as well, so our team was fetching some of the questions from other pages as well. So there's another question from Hamad. If someone beginner start their career in computing and he have to plan to be Amazon certified solution architect, where and how he starts, where he finds resources for all skills, which is requirement.
Absolutely. So there's a recommended training guide that's available on the training and certification website for AWS Certified Solution Architect. So that's at the associate level. One optional thing that you could consider is to take the practitioner exam. This is a fairly low bar. If you're a technical professional, it does give you some exposure to the exam format, what are the content in it, at least identification of technical services and what they're AWS services and what they're used for. So do check out the AWS.training site and also the training and certification website on AWS. It provides the learning guide for the AWS Solution Architect Associate level. It's one of the most popular certifications out there. But there are two other certifications: a certified SysOps associate, as well as the certified developer associate. There are some question overlaps between. I recommend focusing on the AWS Solution Architect associate if that'll be your first certification.
Yeah. So there's another question: how much learning time required as a beginner to become Amazon certified solution architect?
How much learning time would it be required to pass the examination that provides a AWS certified? Well, there's no really substitute. There's really no substitute for hands-on practice and have hands-on work. So try to do your own experimentation. If you're working in a company that gives you exposure to AWS cloud technology, do take the opportunity to find opportunities to work on projects that use AWS. No substitute for being hands-on. Ultimately, do go through the FAQs, some of the documentation for the essential services. I won't list all of them, but obviously EC2, VPC, networking, understanding the concepts around Lambda, around CloudFront, S3 storage, RDS databases. Those are fairly essential. Non-exhaustive, obviously. There are a number of other services. But look at just to repeat myself again, the study guide, the recommended learning, and the recommended services is available. There are also excellent third-party examination prep sites. Like personally, I'm a fan of A Cloud Guru, Linux Academy. These are third-party sites that, for a fee, gives you access to training materials that you can listen to on podcasts and on their app.
Yeah. So since because of the limitation of the time and you can't answer all these questions, but there's a request to all the registrants and the attendees who are watching this session later on after this live stream ends. They can drop their questions in the comment section and and we'll also share your contact details like email, Frank, so that those people can reach out to you directly over the email for the questions that you are not able to reply right now. So we'll do that for later on, and it was really an amazing session from you, especially over the last two sessions and this third one from AWS. First from Faisal, it was totally technical, and then Kai was sharing some of the programs from AWS, including he was telling about AWS Scout program and AWS other programs and other services that AWS provides to startups. So and this one's totally technical. It was really a huge learning platform for me as well. Like especially getting to know some of the services. For example, like with React, we're also using Amplify framework for our own startup as well. And getting to know like a lot of people are interested in building this, and how this AWS community is growing. And definitely I look forward to join the AWS Pakistan user group as well, so that I can connect with fellow developers and people over there.
Absolutely, and thank you for the opportunity, Hamza, and thank you all for joining. Thanks also for organizers of the Tech Summit. So yeah, thanks to everyone, and you do post your questions on the social media channels, and we'll absolutely respond to you. Do stay tuned for tomorrow's session, where my colleague Donny Proposo is going to take us through some of the developer tooling that can help you get your startup off the ground on, and to further developer ideas using AWS.
Yeah, definitely. We request all the participants who are watching this session to kindly join us for the tomorrow session at the exact time, 4 p.m. Pakistan time, because that will be the final AWS session of this series that we're doing with AWS at Pakistan Tech Summit, and we're really super excited and looking forward to that session as well. So since we don't have any other questions right now, we should wrap up this session. So that brings us to the end of the session. Thank you so much for your important time, Frank, and such an informative session. I hope that was equally informative for the whole audience as well. Looking forward to hosting you again whenever you're over here in Pakistan.
Yes, absolutely. Looking forward to being back in Pakistan. I was last there last year. So yeah, so next time we got either in person or online. And have a great weekend, and stay tuned for the subsequent sessions.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Okay.
Take care of yourself. Bye.
Thank you. Take care. Bye.